in Provo at Mom's LaDee Galli's home. This is November 17th. Lisa and I are here. We're just trying out some recording with the video.
Okay, so Mom,
You gotta talk
the
loud.
thing I was wondering about was when you were living up to the dry farm before you moved into town, like what, did you go down to town for the 4th of July or what did you do?
Well, we didn't live up on the dry farm, we lived on the wet farm.
Oh yeah, when you lived on the wet farm, just out east of town.
Yeah. What would we do?
Yeah,
4th
for
of
the
July?
4th of July.
Oh, Rexburg had a good 4th of July. There'd be places set up all over town. You know, they'd just put a plank out here and there and they'd sell ice cream, pop, hamburgers
They'd make homemade ice cream or something.
along Main Street.
And did they call it Whoopie Days clear back then?
I think so. I don't remember it ever being called anything else. Whoopie Days or the 4th of July. I don't remember having any rodeo.
So you'd go into town
Just go to town.
to
and-
Grandma and Grandpa Fixted's, kind of, and then you'd go do all the festivities or...
Yeah, all the festivities, yeah. It was just mostly just eat. I don't remember whether they had many booths set up for...
Did you have a parade?
Back then, well, yeah, at least horses. Mother was the queen of the rodeo one year.
That would have been about when?
Oh, good heavens, I have no idea. Before 31.
Before 1931.
Yeah.
The other thing I was wondering about was Christmases because, I mean, if you're farmers, you didn't have much money, did you? You don't need to get me. Besides that, I know that if you zing the camera from her to me, it's all blurry.
Yeah, just for a second while we're doing it. Well,
So, I mean, did you get presents? Did Santa Claus come?
Yeah. Our Christmas tree would have candles on it instead of lights.
Did you cut a pine tree?
Yeah. Go out and
So
cut it.
your dad, like, was he fun when you were a kid about holidays and stuff like that?
He was never fun.
He wasn't?
No.
what does that mean? When he was around,
He was always drunk.
but I mean morning, noon, and night, or did he ever have anything to do with?
I don't know if I ever saw him sober.
Really?
Yeah.
But when
Really?
he was out working on the farm,
Let me tell you, Dad didn't do much work. The hired men and Mother did
you
it.
had hired men, huh?
Yeah, he always had a couple of hired men. 'Cause Dad didn't work very much.
Did they live in a bunkhouse or did they?
Well, on the dry farm, Grandpa and Grandma had a 2-room house that they had built, and it was down in the bottom where the spring was. And then when they moved off the dry farm and we moved up there, Dad dug that house up on top of the hill so he could watch the cattle come in the lane and keep track of the cattle, make sure.
But that's when then you had to drag the water uphill, isn't that true?
Yeah, I had to carry the water uphill, and then he got a big 500-gallon barrel, drum of some kind, and cut it in half this way, and put that there and put a pump on the handle on the
Up high or down low?
down the bottom over the spring. And I'd sit there and pump water all day for the cattle. They drank a lot of water.
And you lived on the farm until you were 12, about.
Which farm?
The farm east of town, because they just went up to the dry farm in the summer, isn't
Oh
that
yeah,
right?
the dry farm was just a summer.
And that was at the White Owl cabin.
Yeah,
Oh,
but we lived over there when Elaine and I, when we were little, and
Over there at White
at
Owl?
White Owl in the log cabin.
Is that the one where your bedroom was down underneath, kind of?
No, it was just in the end of the room. And one day, Elaine and I decided we'd fix lunch. So she sliced the bread, and we fixed some mustard sandwiches.
Oh, nice. Did the hired men like that?
Well, it wasn't for the hired man. Mother would be with one team of horses on the plow or the disc, and Dad would have another team, and they'd just go around and around, plow first and then the disc following. And a lot of times they'd put boards back on there and tie a box to it, and Elaine and I'd ride around and around and around in the box behind them. Big cistern there by the log cabin that filled with water, and then we could draw the water from there for dishes and drinking and everything. Maybe have to fish a mouse out occasionally.
Yeah. But in your house east of town, you and Aunt Elaine went outside to go down in your bedroom, isn't that right?
Well, we did at first. I can't remember when that was finally enclosed, the porch. And so then we just went out on the porch and then down the stairs to the basement where our bedroom was.
did you have meals together, the four of you?
Meals.
Yeah,
Dinner?
You and your mom and Dad and Aunt Elaine.
Yeah,
And would you
breakfast and dinner and supper.
would you visit, and what do you remember about? Are you kids that just eat and run outside and play?
Probably.
Don't remember anything specific.
No.
But your mom worked on the farm when you were there. She didn't start working at the bank till you moved into town.
Oh, yeah, that was years later. Yeah, Mother drove a team of horses, and when it was harvest time, that was when all of the wheat was sacked right on a harvester,
I see.
put in sacks. And Elaine and I would lay on a stack of sacks, or whichever was the littlest or whatever, and she would take the sack that was full off, she'd sew it up, pull it off, and send it down the chute, put another sack on, and it'd just go round and round and round like that all day.
And so how old might you two have been?
I don't know, I can barely remember riding on the harvester, so I was probably
Like 6 or
3
5?
or 4.
Oh. And she was 2 years older?
Yeah.
I see.
I'm interested in whether the interaction you had with Grandpa, who's Bish, you know, as kids. I mean, did you ever play a card game together? Did you go on a family vacation? Did you go to a movie? Did you go to the rodeo
they
together?
didn't have movies, did you?
Yeah, we did. 5 cents, and they would have a newsreel, and then every week there would be a continuation of a Hopalong Cassidy or something.
So you'd keep coming back.
That was in the old Elk Theater.
But did Grandpa ever go anywhere with you or do anything with you?
Not anything like that. We went to, let's see, Aunt Clara, this is his dad's sister. Aunt Clara and Uncle Lindsay came up one time and we went to Yellowstone Park.
What was their last name
Snell.
once she was married? So it was Clara Fexted Snell.
Uh-huh.
And the four of you and them went up to Yellowstone Park.
Uh-huh.
I think we have some pictures.
We
Right.
went up. No, there weren't any pictures of
So,
that.
but Grandma and Grandpa Fixed it, your dad's parents.
Yeah.
And what are their
Oscar and Emma.
Yeah, and they were living kind of over by Smith Park in that area.
Yeah, well, they lived up on the dry farm at first.
Right.
But yeah, they had a house, you know, there at Smith Park in Rexburg. Okay, just before that you go up to the bridge and cross the canal there.
Okay, but Smith Park sits on kind of a rectangle,
Yeah.
and it's mostly east and west long. The hospital,
This is more on the east side.
the hospital was, if you went up the south,
It would be southeast of Smith.
south.
But when the girls went to the Adams school, they would stop at Grandma and Grandpa Fixted's on the way home, and Mom's job was to gather the eggs. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, we walked. Mother started me to school when I was 5, so that Elaine didn't have to walk by herself. And so, and it didn't matter if it was snowing and blowing. We went to school. I remember one time Elaine got so cold, and for some reason or other, I wouldn't let her lay down. I knew enough that she couldn't stop. And it was a mile to the first house. Let's see, who was it lived there then? Garn.
And then the other mile was to Grandma and Grandpa's house?
No, well, yeah, but in between, there were Dell,
Doesn't-
Palmer lived there. That's where they built all those houses down
Right.
there at the bottom of that hill. And go into Grandpa and Grandma's and tie the horse up and walk on.
She
to
said
school.
Grandpa sat in the corner because they were older.
Grandpa Oscar.
And
Yeah.
she just remembered him being in the corner with his cane all the time.
He had arthritis real bad or very lazy.
What was, it was Grandma Emma?
Yeah.
What was her maiden name?
You would ask me that.
But so then she named her daughter Emma, huh?
Yeah, the oldest.
And
Well,
that's
I don't know.
that's Aunt Emma that we know. that
there's
lived in Salt
a
Lake.
couple of babies buried up there in the cemetery. And there's one that was Aunt Emma's, and I don't know, a couple that were grandmas, I think.
In the Rexburg.
When you say
cemetery.
grandmas,
Emma,
Emma and Oscar.
yeah. No, this is out Sunnydale. They lived out there before they moved into town. I don't ever remember
Don't
when
know
they
where
lived
that
out at
is.
Sunnydale.
out by Archer,
Yeah,
out towards
out
Archer.
that way,
Mm.
out in the area where
So that's where Grandpa and Grandma are buried, in that same cemetery?
yeah,
Bish and
Fish
Ina.
and Ina, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think Aunt Emma has a baby out there. And Emma and Uncle Ray
Emma, the oldest sister, married Ray
Robinson.
Robinson. We remember them as kids.
Yeah,
They lived in Salt Lake.
yeah.
On 9th West is what I
Yeah.
remember.
But Mom told me yesterday that Aunt Emma and Uncle Ray, they had Grandma and Grandpa Oscar and Emma come and stay with them in Salt Lake.
They would come up and get them and bring them down to Salt Lake where it wasn't so cold for so long for part of the winter.
They must have, I don't know when they passed away, but I have no recollection
Of
of Oscar and Emma.
Well, I guess you wouldn't.
They would have passed away.
Oh, yeah,
Long time.
long before that. I can remember one time Grandpa going to church, Grandpa and Grandma going to in the old First Ward, but you had to go up 8 or 10 steps to get into the chapel. And so, with
What?
the,
So
Huh?
Mom,
Why would they have gone to church?
they were members.
Were they church goers?
oh yeah,
But their children were not church
Yeah,
goers?
she said that all of the boys were not, all the boys
None of the
smoked and
boys.
drank, and Grandpa Fixed it, had a hard time figuring out why that was.
Oscar had a hard
Mhm.
time figuring why all his boys smoked and drank.
well, in the wintertime up on the dry farm, what was there to do?
But smoke and drink.
Yeah, I guess.
They can play video games.
Go out and chase coyotes.
Or watch satellite TV.
So then, Mom, tell Matt about when you were going to the elementary school at the Adams School and you beat up Donna Wright in the coat closet. That was a pretty good story, I thought.
Well, this is the bishop's granddaughter.
The bishop. The current.
Bishop Wright. I don't know what brought it on, but we were in the Adams School. You had your classroom, but there was an end that was the coat closet for overshoes and your snowsuits and stuff. And I cannot remember what happened, but boy, we were slugging it out. And I left her in there bawling and went home.
What grade?
Oh, it'd probably be about the second or third.
And keep talking.
When I was in the first grade, my teacher was Fontella Langlois. She was a big, heavy-set woman. And anyway, we had you know, she was teaching us how to write some and all of that. And at the end of the year, she gave me a book of poetry for having the best workbook in this class. And I've still got that. I think I've given it to Elaine, or Glenna, Sonny. How about your sister?
Lisa.
I think so.
Give it to Lisa.
Well, I think so, or one of the grandkids. But one day I was riding the horse into school, and I don't know why Grandma and Grandpa lived here, and the Hunter family lived next door.
You mean near Smith Park at that time?
And I don't know why I would be riding the horse beyond Grandpa and Grandma's, but anyway, this Ephraim Hunter, he'd come out and throw rocks at me, at the horse. And I told him if he didn't cut it out, I was going to get off and whop his butt. The next time I came along, he did. He threw a rock and hit the horse in the flank. So I got off, and I grabbed him and turned him over my knee, and I whacked his bottom.
He didn't throw rocks anymore?
He didn't throw rocks anymore.
I want to go back to a comment you made when you and Annie Lane were walking, and it was so cold, and Annie Lane wanted to lay down. It reminded me that maybe it was because you had an uncle, one of your dad's brothers, that froze to death by going into town the night you were born, from the dry farm, and he
got off to open the gate and didn't and let the team just stand, and they went off and left him. And
so he crawled up in the rocks and went to sleep and froze to death.
Is this Frank?
No.
He was too drunk to almost tickle up to freeze, but.
What was that uncle's name? Do you?
Ralph.
Ralph.
If you're gonna.
Well, anyway, I was commenting on her earlier part when she talked about Annie Lane being so cold and Mom just not letting her lay down, and I thought that maybe it's because that uncle had frozen to death the night Mom was born, and they knew that.
Oh.
Well, she was 2.5 years older than I was. She's the one that should have.
Well, that may be, but you would have still might have known that you couldn't lay down.
Anyway, and we'd get in as far as the Garnes place, which was the first place on the elbow there, and
Put your legs down just a little
I can move it.
sometimes they'd be sitting out to the road waiting for us.
The Garnes would?
Yeah, because they knew about what time we would be along. And I don't ever remember going in and sticking our feet in their oven. We may have done, but we'd go on to the next place, which was another half mile, and we'd knock on their door and they'd come and we'd go in and take our shoes off and put our feet up in the oven and warm them, thaw them out. And if their kids hadn't gone to church or gone on to school, then we'd ride on into school with them.
So you went, if you had trouble or stuff, you had a good rapport with your grandparents, Oscar and Emma, and you could go there.
Oh yeah. When they'd go to Salt Lake, I'd stop. I don't know why it wasn't Elaine that did, but anyway, they raised chickens all the time, and Grandma sold eggs. They didn't have much of an income. I imagine they had welfare. And so I'd go out and gather the eggs and wash them and put them in a case. And then when that got full, Mother'd pick them up and take them down to the store and sell them. Put the money in a jar for Grandma. It was probably the only money she ever had.
Your mother got along good with her,
Oh yeah.
with her in-laws?
Yeah. Now, I don't remember ever seeing this, but I think it was Elaine told me that Grandpa,
Oscar,
yeah, slept at the foot of the bed and Grandma slept at the top of the bed. Now, I don't know whether they had just a single bed or whether it was a three-quarter bed or why, but anyway, I remember Elaine telling me that, you know, in later years.
But they came from Norway, and Mom said they had kind of an accent.
Oscar and Emma,
Uh-huh.
they were
Norwegian,
immigrants from Norway. Huh?
directly from Norway.
Well, was she the Olavison?
Yeah, Grandma was an Olavison.
Emma?
Olavison. Mm-hmm. She was Swedish. Grandpa was Norwegian. She was Swedish. And then Grandma Kepner was Danish. So I've got all three.
Grandma Kepner.
Rachel.
No, John's mother. Grandpa Kepner.
Sarah.
No. Grandpa Kepner, Grandpa John Kepner's mother was...
Sarah Barnes Smith that married the Kepner?
Yeah. And Matilda Sarah Farnes, let's see, oh, that's on the Kepner side.
So, let me ask you about your mom's mom and dad, because they still lived out in Hibbard when you were dry farming and doing all this stuff. Is that right?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about
Kepner
John
and Rachel
Kepner, Ina's parents.
Yeah. They lived out, I don't know if you remember, but when you get out in Hibbard, there was this big two-story rock house set back in. Grandpa and Uncle John and...
But did you guys do more things with the Fixted grandparents than you did the Kepner grandparents?
Did more things. We never did much of anything with any.
Well,
we went huckleberrying with Grandma Kepner.
I see.
We went up there.
Up to Warm River?
Yeah, up to Warm River, huckleberrying every year. All of the girls, the Kepner girls, Aunt Floss and Aunt May and anyway, all Mother's sisters.
Ina's sisters.
Yeah, and the girls. And Grandma stated we had one great big tent and 4 or 5 beds in it. We'd sleep in family beds.
And your grandpa didn't go because he was too grumpy?
Well, I don't know. Well, Grandpa was dead by then. I never did know Grandpa Kepner.
I see.
And
so who took care of Grandma Kepner then? Did
she and Aunt Cora just took care of themselves.
I see. Because Aunt Cora married way late in life.
Yeah. And Uncle Steve up at Warm River, he lived close up there. He, I think he operated the mill, and he was building him a new log house up there, and then I don't know whether it was the war or what. Anyway, I don't think they ever I know they never finished that house.
Steve, who married Nedra, who's still
Uh-huh.
alive, is that right?
Yeah, Aunt Nedra's the only one of that generation of either side that's still alive.
Where does she live?
In at Hibbard.
She used to work at King's. She was really nice to me when I was little.
Nedra is a Kepner then.
Uh-huh. She was a big, heavy-set gal. She sat and read love stories, romance magazines, and ate chocolates all the time.
What did Uncle Steve do for a living then?
You know, just odd jobs, I guess. I don't remember him ever working at a place.
I see. So I want you to tell Matt about the fearsome foursome girls.
The fearsome.
You and your girly friends that hooked up when you were in the 7th grade.
Oh.
So there was Dolores Topham.
Jean Spalding.
Well, her name was Archibald at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Norma Jean Archibald. And Stella Byrne. And Stella and Jean Dolores. Stella and Dolores were not members of the church. And
They weren't?
no, they weren't members of the church, either one of them.
I didn't know that.
And I don't know why we started cleaning together in the 7th grade. And we just became good buddies. Well, we all lived in close proximity. We walked to school together.
Still, it's unusual for 4 girls to hang out so much.
And Jean, her father, they had
Jean meaning Norma Jean.
yeah, had a dry farm up near Green Canyon. He dry farmed up there.
Was it Green Canyon in those days? Was there a pool?
Pincox.
There was a pool.
Yeah, it was Pincox. The pool was up on top of the hill at that time.
Which is, it's a natural hot spring.
It's all natural hot water. They have natural hot water. There's several homes in Newdale that is heated by that water. It's still a going. But we just became close friends, and we lived almost on the same block, all 4 of us.
And you'd after school go to Joy Drug Store for your root beers?
Oh yeah, on our way home from school.
And how much did that cost?
A nickel.
And so how'd you get your money?
Oh, babysitting mostly. I had, what were their names? The dad owned the pool hall in Rexburg. Oh gosh, and he had married a gal from England after the war. Oh, can't remember whether their names were.
And you tended for them?
Yeah, I don't know how I got connected with them, but they would call and ask if I could babysit for them, and I guess they liked me. I'd do up the dishes, the kids would be undressed and into bed, and they paid very well.
Yay.
Besides that, they gave me candy off of the, what do they call the boards, and you could win candy at the pool halls and places.
Those little pegboard things.
Yeah, you could win a box of chocolates or something, but they paid better than anybody, and she was from England. He met her over there in the war, and I don't know whether they got married over there afterwards, but I think they had 2, a boy and a girl.
And then you got to be a freshman, and that's when you were the cheerleader?
Yeah, I was a cheerleader when I was a freshman.
And this would be now about
Well, let's see.
14, about 1945,
What year did you graduate, Mom?
1944.
What year did I graduate from high school?
She was born in 31, so she's 14 or 15. How old's Cheryl?
I don't know. You know, I'm sick about losing our yearbooks.
In the flood?
Yeah, they were in their cabinet there in the kitchen.
1945, approximately, probably.
Yeah,
About this time.
approximately. But
And-
we did most of the school activities, you know, we'd kind of get them together, we'd do the advertising and post it all over the school building, and I don't know, we were just always busy that way as well. And we belonged to the pep club, the pepper club, and it was just fun times.
Did you have a boyfriend in high school? Was Clyde Knapp your boyfriend?
Yeah, my first date was with Wally Wilding. No, it wasn't Wally. My first date was with Ralph Anderson. And of course, he lived out the Sugar Road, out that way out of town. And were we living in town then? I guess, anyway, he had one big brother, and he was kind of odd. And I think he was deaf or something. But Ralph was a good kid, good-looking guy, and everything.
And you would have been like a sophomore when you were going with him, or?
It may have been about then. When I was a freshman, I was just a runt.
Were ya?
Oh, yeah, every year on the longest day, the first grade would go out on the front of on the cement out in front of the school building. And they'd roll out paper and someone would draw
The shadow.
our shadow. And of course mine was always the shortest. And Ross somebody was always the biggest. He was.
And so out of the four of you, were you the shortest all through high school?
Well, I kind of caught.
Dolores is tall.
Yeah, Dolores is taller. I kind of caught up with the other three, Jean and Stella. None of us got really tall. Dee was always the biggest.
Because you've been 5'3" all of your life.
Yeah, it seems like it. But we had a great time. I had a school teacher. His name was Merle Fisher, was in the 5th grade. And he was a good teacher, and clear back then in the 5th grade, he taught you how to keep a checkbook and how to write a check and stuff like that. We learned things from him. And Dad wanted to go to Arizona and see his sisters down there and stuff, and so Mother talked with him, and he said that the traveling would probably be as good for us, schooling for us, as we could get. So I think 6 weeks.
Wow.
We were out of school. We went down through California,
And this was when you were in the 5th grade?
yeah.
So was the drive-in movie theater, was it there when you were? No.
That came a long time.
So did you have the Romance Theater?
There
Is
was
that where
the
you went?
Romance and the Elk Theater. The Elk Theater was across the street, and that's where you could go and for a nickel and see a movie and part of a continuation,
I see.
so that you came back next week.
That's funny. And so did you play with any of your cousins much, or?
Well, not an awful lot. Aunt Nellie, they lived up on Warm River. Aunt May and her girls lived there in town. And they were about the only one. We saw more of them. Well, and Peggy, Aunt May and Uncle Charlie. Part of the time they were out on Camas Creek. He herded sheep. And they were out to Camas Creek a lot of times. We went out there one time. I've got pictures of us, Peggy and Elaine and I, sitting
I've
up on,
seen that. I've
on
seen
top
that
of the
picture.
water barrel. And Peggy, well, I could tell you how it came about. Rulon Wade dry farmed. He and his wife was somebody we always knew. and I don't know how he and your dad, what their connection was or anything, but Rulon Wade needed a babysitter one night. What's his wife's name? Can't remember. Anyway,
So you were up there tending.
I went and tended their kids for them that night. And then your dad asked me if I wanted a job after school.
He was there?
Yeah, he was with Rulon. What's his wife's name?
And you were 16 at this stage? Probably.
Yeah,
Because you
somewhere-
got married in November and you'd have been...
thereabouts.
Well, this would be about, if she's 16, that'd be 1947, 48 probably.
48.
Gosh, what was Rulon Wade's wife?
Because you got married in 49.
Yeah.
And what business was it that Aisel had that?
He had a credit and loan office. Oh. I don't ever sit with my legs out except in the temple, in church.
And so did you already have secretarial skills?
Well, I had taken a semester, or what, up at Rick's, shorthand, bookkeeping. I
And-
just went as a special student.
And so this business was a credit and
People could come in and borrow $300 on their car or something.
oh, like the payday loans
Yeah.
now.
If you had
Or
collateral.
more, yeah.
And so what did you do on a day-to-day
At the
basis at the office?
Did you answer the phone?
I answered the phone, I took the payments, recorded them, totaled up the day, took it to the bank.
And was Uncle George working there at this same time?
Blaine.
Oh.
So Blaine and you were in the office, and Dad, Aisel, was he out selling or doing stuff, or?
Doing stuff.
And
That's
so,
about all I can say.
and so then, this is about 1948, we think, and then how did you happen to get engaged? I mean, what?
Don't ask me that.
Did
Okay.
you start officially, you just started dating? Did you date with another couple mostly?
Well, we went to dinner a couple times with Rulon and his wife. I don't remember.
Okay, now also about this time you were in the Miss Rexburg pageant or something. Is that about this time?
I was for the classic shop.
Now,
That
meaning,
means that they sponsored you?
so the different businesses in town would sponsor somebody. And was the pageant similar to the way they are now? I mean, you had bathing
don't
suit, you had
think
talent.
you-
have one anymore.
Well, didn't you you had to submit a photo, isn't that true?
Yeah, we took photos of everybody.
Yeah, who took the photo? Because that is a swinging photo. Have you seen it?
I don't
In
remember.
the swimming suit at the Sand Hills?
Anderson did mine, and
The Anderson photo that we know, and what's Ralph? That's his name. That same Ralph that you mentioned earlier.
no,
Different Anderson.
different, whole different, completely.
So you had to take some photo shots and
Yeah,
submit,
out at the Sand Hills.
and then
I don't know where he got the idea of going out to
I
Sand
don't know,
Hills.
but it was a great photo.
what else at the night of the pageant? Then what?
Did you have to do a talent?
No, didn't have to have a talent.
Did they ask you
We had to
questions?
strut the walkway.
Did you in your swimming suit?
Yeah, in our swimsuits.
Okay, and then what else did you do that night during the pageant?
How many girls would there have been?
I have no idea.
And then, but anyway, you won,
Yeah,
and this would be when you're 17 or
yeah.
Now, isn't it true that because you won this, you went to Hollywood?
Yeah.
You had dinner
I
with,
got a free trip to Hollywood, and I was supposed to get a complete wardrobe and luggage, new set of luggage, and various things from different stores. And I got an old suitcase.
No wardrobe?
No, nothing.
What?
The fellow that ran the Liberty store, and he was kind of behind all of this, the talk was that she got,
The wardrobe and the luggage? His wife?
yeah, I can't even remember.
so didn't you have dinner with a celebrity or something?
Oh, down in Hollywood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had lunch in the wasn't called a cafeteria then, someplace on,
At the studio?
yeah,
Is it Paramount?
no,
MGM?
the one with the tiger.
RKO? Oh, the Tiger.
MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer has
And, Jimmy Stewart, and I can't remember who all was there.
Jimmy Stewart was in the
I mean, you
cafeteria.
met him, didn't you, Mom?
Yeah, it seems like it. My guide down there happened to be a relative. He worked in the
Of
Hollywood
you?
area.
One of your relatives?
Yeah. Mel, good-looking guy. Lived out in we dug potatoes out on his parents' farm. I didn't know he was.
It just,
Mel.
he was your guide and you figured out that you were relatives.
He and another fellow, you know.
So did you go down there by yourself to Hollywood?
I did,
On a train?
plane.
And
They
who
flew me down
who
there.
picked you up, or?
Mel and
Must have been a publicity thing or something, huh?
yeah, that's what it was. But they were very nice. They took me to the hotel, and I did some shopping and picked me up, and we went to dinner and went to a movie. We went swimming someplace. Took me to the MGM or whatever lot it was.
And was this your senior year?
Yeah.
Must have been. Would it have been towards the end of school, or?
Oh, no, I had graduated.
Oh, so this was the summer after you graduated. And you were 17.
Mm-hmm. I started
Well,
school
it'd be
when
the-
I was 5.
Yeah, it'd be the summer of 1949,
Yeah.
because you'd still be 17
And you
at the
were
time.
already going with Dad when the whole pageant thing was going on and all that stuff?
Mm-mm.
No.
Were you working there at the
The office.
office? Okay, we want to ask a little bit about the other siblings of Mom's, Sonny and Glenna and Dennis, and what activities or association or memories she has.
I think we skipped that they actually moved into town. Did we get that on?
So at some point you moved into the 55 East 2nd North home,
On my 13th birthday.
the home that we remember
Yeah.
as kids.
So now
Yeah,
they're
the red
living,
brick
from
house.
here on they're living in town.
Okay,
Red brick house.
okay. So now what about
And
what?
did your parents divorce when you moved to town? Or was
After.
it after?
Yes.
Oh, so let's see, 13th birthday would be 1944, December 1944. And, yeah, that's a good...
Because Uncle Denny and Aunt Glenna were both born when you lived in the house in town, weren't they?
Dennis. Glenna was born out. I had to get on the horse and go down to Palmer's to call
That
the
wasn't
doctor.
Aunt Sunny.
Uh-huh.
And so did you and Annie Lane hang out at all, or did she have her own set of friends? And
Oh, yeah. Except the 6th grade, her grade, asked me to play baseball with them
Oh,
because I could hit the ball good. I was in the 4th grade. but I got to play on the 6th grade ball team.
That's still at Adams School.
Yep,
Did you ever go to Washington School?
not till the 7th grade. The Adams School was 1 through 6, and then the Adams School was
Washington.
junior high, or yeah, junior high, 7, 8, and then high school. Excuse me.
Was 9 through 12.
Yeah.
Because when I came along, I went to first and half of 2nd grade at the Washington School, because the junior high then was a building just to the south of the Washington School, which would be 1958, 59
So as
timeframe.
girls, because you had 4 girls in your family, did you get along well with 4 girls before Uncle Denny came along?
Yeah, pretty good. I don't remember us having too many fights. Well, we were too busy.
Even when you lived in town?
Well, yeah, after we moved to town and we were in school, and I think it was the first summer that we was there, I worked for Seth and Teddy Lou Wood babysitting up on the dry farm. And then Saturday nights they'd be down, and I'd usually go over to the hotel and tend the kids then. And when her mother had club parties and stuff, she'd pay me to come over and clean up the kitchen and stuff
So
like
Aunt
that.
Sunny, she seemed pretty spunky to me. Was she that way her whole life?
Oh, she used to run, and we lived up on the hill at the dry farm, and the well was down here. And so the wheat, and she'd run down through the wheat and then run out into where you couldn't find her. I chased her through the wheat more times than I care to remember.
Because Grandma wanted.
Well, you just didn't
So
want
she
her
didn't get lost?
get lost. You
Oh.
couldn't even see her out there in the wheat and
Oh.
stuff. But up at the dry farm, I enjoyed it up there. I'd get on my horse at night and just go out riding through the quake and aspen groves, listening to the coyotes and
You had
scaring
your
up
own
deer.
horse that was yours specific?
Oh yeah, Elaine and I.
Did you all have a horse?
I'm the only one that rode much.
I see.
Elaine did. We had a pound pepper can that all of our pennies went in. And when that got full, we had enough money. We bought a horse, Old Bolly.
That was your horse?
Yeah, that was Elaine and I's horse. And then Dad or somebody got us a kid's saddle too, a small saddle. And we would ride the horse to school. And sometimes.
So when you go to school on a horse, what do you do with the horse while you're in school?
Tied it up at Grandpa and Grandma's and then walked the next 2 blocks to school.
I see.
How much money would that pepper can of pennies have been? Do you have any
Well,
idea?
it'd be pennies, nickels, you know.
But how much?
I have no idea how much we paid for the horse.
No.
But Old Bolly, she was a good old mare. And then I don't remember how we got the saddle, the kid's saddle. Maybe we had enough to buy the saddle too, because it was just a small saddle. And I always had to have somebody saddle the horse up because I was about this tall. And then I got smart, and I'd bring her over to the granary door.
And stand on the door.
Yeah, stand in the doorway and throw the saddle on. Didn't get the cinch too tight the first time. But I learned I could put my foot up there and pull.
So after you moved to town, I mean, did your folks have trouble getting along the whole time? Or did Grandma just get tired of your dad being drunk? Or what was the thing that precipitated the divorce?
10 years.
10 years of...
Battered. I saw.
Well, they must have been married more than 13 years.
Well, I don't remember, the exact years and stuff, but we sold. Oh, it was the farm down downtown, or down outside of Rexburg.
Yeah.
That belonged to a bank. Elaine says, where does she say? Anyway, we don't both have the same country that belonged to. And I can't remember whether it was Switzerland or Germany. But anyhow, and I didn't know, I never could figure out why it belonged to a bank overseas until, they made this book of Rexburg.
Yeah.
And in there it states about this couple from Germany. And at this time when government was buying up property and people's property, that was getting behind or something.
They couldn't pay their taxes.
Didn't pay their taxes or whatever. And so the bank came in and bought that up. And that's the only clue that I've ever had as to why it belonged to a bank in overseas.
But your dad had the means to buy a house in town, is that?
Well, yeah, we raised quite a few cattle and had them to sell.
He didn't build the house or have it built, it was an existing home that you...
Yeah, in fact, it was one of Mother's cousin's houses.
I see.
And she knew Uncle Height was selling it, and she decided she wanted it, and she was going to move to town.
What was Height's last name, do you remember?
Height Kepner.
Which would be Ina's first cousin?
Yeah,
That's
probably.
quite a name.
I don't know how Height was spelled,
And
but,
so then you got into town and...
well, yeah, but before that, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have water or anything at the farm until after that fellow bought up the bank loans. And then it was, First Security Bank was holder of it or something. And so they put a well down.
They developed it kind of.
Yeah, put a well in, and we had running water in the house, and a bathtub, and a toilet, and electricity.
So when you were young, your parents fussed with each other a lot? I mean, it wasn't what you would classify as a happy marriage? Or...
No, I remember, and this was when we were still living out on the farm. And I can't remember whether Dad had closed the back porch in yet or not. It was just open, and it was up several stairs, and that's where the washing machine was. And somehow Mother finally got that enclosed. So when she washed out there with the old
I
wringer
see.
washer. And what was your question?
Was
About how they got along
if
with
they
each
had
other.
a happy
Oh,
marriage?
no. Dad was always drunk. We'd get in the car, get on the sleigh, ready to go. He'd have to go back in the house and have another cigarette and a cup of coffee.
But was he drinking when they were going together? I mean, did she not know that he drank, do you think? Or he was just all charming until they got married?
I was not around. I don't know.
But you don't remember her saying?
Well, Aunt, I don't know who was the friend. It must have been, maybe Dad and Charlie knew each other, because Aunt May and Uncle Charlie,
your mom's brother.
yeah, they palled around. Dad rodeoed and stuff, and I don't know, Aunt May and Uncle Charlie, I knew better. Well, and May Humphrey and her girls.
So then when you got moved into town and got settled, your mom decided she'd had enough of that?
Yeah, she did. She finally had enough.
But you kids were all, like Aunt Elaine was 15 or something,
Yeah.
so.
I think I was 14. Oh, well, we moved in there on my 13th birthday. And I came home from school one night, and Dad was there, and he was drunk. And I don't remember what started it, what happened, but we were down on the floor going at it, and I guess I must have kicked him in the face.
We meaning you and him?
Yeah. Because there was blood everywhere when Mother came home, and I got away from him into the bathroom, locked the door, out the window, and went over to Holly's.
You don't remember if you'd done something that made him mad?
I can't remember what. Well, if he was drunk, he didn't need anything.
Oh, yeah. And the other kids weren't there, or?
No, nobody else was home.
And so you went over to Dolores'?
Yeah, and called the sheriff.
And what came of that?
They came and got him.
Huh.
Mother came home, there was blood all over the dining room floor, and she didn't know what had happened.
And it wasn't, so it was like the next year that they got divorced or something?
I don't know, that may have kind of culminated things and started that, I don't.
So when they got divorced, where did Grandpa go to live?
Oh, he had a camp, kind of like a sheep camp.
What does that mean? Where?
Well, just that they used up on the dry farm or
Yeah,
something.
that they'd use up on the.
So where did he set it?
Did he go over to his parents' house?
No, you know, up there at the college, oh, it's been so long since I've been up there. There was a cousin that lived up there across the canal. There used to be a canal up there. It's all dormitories. And
Yeah,
stuff
up that
now.
hill, kind of west of the
Up where
college,
dormitories,
southwest.
dormitories and stuff are. Oh, Henry fixed it. I think that was his
And he
name.
had his camp up there.
Yeah, and then, I think he had bought some property up there. Well, maybe he bought that relative's property, that's what it was.
It's true, we skipped this part, but isn't it that when you were young, your mom would send you in to wait for Grandpa when he was in the bus?
Oh, Saturdays, that was shopping time for the farmers. And so everybody went to town, and every time we got home, Mother'd say, well, I don't know what I bought, but what we got, all I bought's toilet paper and soap. Yeah, but Elaine and I, and sometimes Mother, would go to the movie with us. And then we'd sit and wait and wait and wait, and pretty soon Mother'd put me out and say, go knock on the door and tell them to send Bish Fixstead out.
Of the bar?
Of the pool hall.
Would he be playing pool and drinking, or just drinking and
I
smoking?
think just drinking at the bar, just beer and smoking, and I don't know if you ever played cards or anything like that. Well, at first,
We're talking about Ina going to work at Bank of Commerce.
Which she didn't do until after they were divorced, is that correct?
I'm not sure if it was final or not. I had to go with her to the judge. I don't know why I got elected, but I had to go to court with her.
For the divorce
Yeah.
situation?
Did they have a hearing or just filing papers?
I don't remember that much about it.
Did someone ask you questions?
I don't remember that much about it, but I sure could have answered a lot.
Maybe that's why you went. And so then she went to work at the bank.
No, she and Ethel started a nursery.
Like, not for children, but for
Yes.
plants?
No, for children. And they tended the, what were the people that started Bank of Commerce?
Mickelson's.
Mickle, not Mickelson.
Mickelson.
Not Mickle.
Oh yeah, Steve Mickle.
Steve Mickle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they brought their kids over there all the time. They had quite a regular.
And was this at Grandma's house?
Yeah. Oh yes, Ethel wasn't going to have it at
At
her
your
house.
house?
Yeah.
So it was like a daycare?
Yeah, a daycare for working women.
Ethel is Ina's.
Dolores' mother,
Oh.
Toppin.
I see.
I never knew this. I've never heard
Mm-mm.
this before.
And they ran the nursery, and I think they did pretty well, but I think Mother got a little tired of doing all the work, and Ethel getting because wasn't her house. Her house
Right.
didn't get dirty. And stuff like that. Mother had the laundry to do and everything.
so she just decided to get a different.
So she went to nursing school, I think, while she was doing that.
Where at? Up at Rick's?
Up at the hospital,
Oh.
nurse's aide or something. And
I've never heard that.
yeah, she went up there and worked as a nurse's aide.
And then somehow she transitioned into working at the bank.
Yeah, through the babysitting,
I see.
you know, them. And the Mickles.
And she worked at the bank like 30 years or something?
Yeah. And she was their depositor. I mean, they would load her car, the trunk, with the cash to bring to Salt Lake to put in the
Nice.
bank.
Okay.